everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. I would like to introduce our special guest, Mr. Maninder Pal Singh. He is a partner at Agrim, Norway. He leads the digital security services business of the Nordics-based consulting firm and is responsible for building teams and scaling the business. He is a cyber risk professional with more than 18 years of experience in multiple domains across cybersecurity, information security, and risk management. Mr. Singh has extensively worked in both consulting and internal security roles. He has worked in the capacity of CISO for many organizations and now advises companies on building and managing their information security to protect, detect, and respond capabilities. Before joining Agrim, Mr. Singh also worked with companies like GE Capital, Barclays, KPMG, and delivered many trainings across senior management and board members. So let's welcome Mr. Maninder. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Omita, for having me here and a wonderful introduction. Thank you.
So we are beginning the webinar. We hope to have an interesting conversation with Mr. Singh. So over the last couple of years, pandemic has changed the entire world, and more specifically, the focus on cybersecurity. So how do you see the change in cybersecurity landscape before the pandemic and post-pandemic? Of course, I know it's not yet post-pandemic, but yet maybe a less pandemic scenario in 2022.
Right, Amita. That's a very good question and very contextual in today's time. Well, I kind of put it this way. Pandemic has made a permanent change in the way we've looked at cybersecurity. A lot of companies were working towards digitization, moving to cloud, and all that we all know got expedited severely during the pandemic time. Now, what that made was that the organizations were getting boundaryless. The more you move to cloud, it's very difficult to put a boundary across your infrastructure, your people who are sitting in the office. We used to think we have to protect all of them, but then the more we go to cloud and then people working from home, right, that boundary disappears. And now you cannot protect in that manner anymore. It is no longer having the right firewall, so protecting your network that secures your information. It goes much beyond that. We need to protect more of the people, the endpoints, the information itself. Now there are a lot of technologies as well as approaches to protect information that is being stored on the endpoints that are being stored on. And of course, making the people more aware onto how they can handle this information and respond to any kind of attacks that, as we say, people are getting more attacked rather than the technology itself. So this is how the whole approach towards cybersecurity has changed. And I think this is not going to come back even when offices resume full capacity. First thing is, I don't think everybody will be working from office anymore. There will still be a lot of flexibility for people to work remotely. And same way, cybersecurity, and you know what, the best cybersecurity solutions and approaches are actually ones that align to business objectives and business approaches. So if the way we do business has changed, the way we protect the business, secure the business also has changed.
Thank you for that insightful answer, sir. So, with in context to your answer, I would also like to, ask you that, we see that you have actually spent a considerable amount leading and consulting advisory companies, So do you see any change in the way corporate leaders consider cybersecurity as the focus area over the last decade? If you can give us some more insights and your experience at the boardroom discussions.
Right. So, yes, over the years, there has been a lot of change in the way companies have approached security. And even though there has been a dramatic change in the last 2 years, but still we were seeing some gradual changes. 10, 12 years back, if a company had an antivirus, a firewall, and they had, basic NDA with their suppliers, that was considered like a very secure company. Not anymore, right? As we've progressed, we've matured, we've looked at more aspects of cybersecurity. A lot more has to be done. And when it comes to the board, they have become more aware, cognizant, that is, and of course, responsible towards their acts on this area, because I would say there are two reasons. One, of course, is regulatory. A lot of regulations across the globe now make the board of directors responsible for cybersecurity of the company, or doing enough to ensure that the company is protected against cyber attacks, as well as the scenarios that are developing over the world. Both state actors and non-state actors, they could attack certain companies, and the companies need to be prepared for that. The changing global geopolitical system also makes some companies vulnerable, because just for the reason that they are important to a particular country. Now, the board of directors, of course, are aware of those risks, and they need to do enough. I've been involved in a lot of discussions with the board of directors, and I must say I'm amazed the kind of interest they have taken of late into the topic. They may not have a background on cyber or even IT, but the kind of questions they ask, the kind of knowledge they demonstrate clearly shows that they are doing their homework and they are very ready. But again, I'm not saying about all companies and all boards, but certain areas, and especially the ones that are regulated, we've seen tremendous change in the way the board looks at it. I'll give you one example. As a CISO, long back once, when I started my journey, I wanted to present to the board the key risks, and for the first time I was called to a risk committee meeting, which was not exactly the board, but something that reported to the board. And it was a 2-hour meeting. I was allotted 5 minutes. I waited for my turn and it never came, right? I tried the next time and the next time. I think third or fourth time I was given those 5 to 7 minutes. But the thing was, within next 1.5 years, not only was I a regular presenter in those meetings, I was actually permanent member of the meeting, attending the full sessions as a CISO, and then of course presenting the key or giving the key inputs on matters relating to cybersecurity. So that showed that once they became aware of the importance of this topic, and you are, as a CISO, if you're presenting the right things to them, well, the boards do take you very seriously. That's been my personal first-hand experience as well.
Thank you for sharing your experience with us, Mr. Singh. It was literally insightful. So, I would like to ask you another question. We see that data breaches are continuing to grow every year. Even though new cybersecurity tools and techniques are being employed, we see a newer technique employed by the hackers as well, right? That might outsmart the organization. So according to you, what are the few areas that organizations need to focus and stay ahead of the hackers?
Well, that's an interesting question. I agree to it to a large part. Yes, the number of cyber attacks are increasing. Yes, the number of breaches are increasing. Yes, the methods we have for protecting our information, the approaches, we are getting more advanced in terms of not only the technology, solutions, products, but also overall maturity as a cybersecurity community. But still, my own view, my observation or view based on observation is it's not exactly that the hackers really have to come up with something very new every time they breach an organization, right? It's not about having a new 0-day vulnerability that they need to exploit every time they want to get inside an organization. Unfortunately, the methods that are being used to hack a lot of companies are quite known, quite old, quite common, right? Well, one example is, as you would have heard, more than 90% cyber breaches, as per multiple studies, they start with a human error. Either it is because of social engineering or some other aspect, right? So they would like to exploit something that is more like a mistake or something that is lying. And the thing about cybersecurity is, as professionals, we are trained to look at things in a risk-based manner, which is not wrong, right? The higher the risk, the more critical the asset, the more protection we like to apply to it, because we have limited resources, we can't protect everything. And our approach is usually inside out. We look inside, we see which is more important, and I like to protect that. Attackers are more outside in. They don't look for the strongest, the most critical assets to breach. They look at the weakest links to get inside, right? That is a key difference. And that is why they get to win many a times. Even though we have protected most of our assets, but even if we left a few, they would find that as a loophole and come inside and then transcend. And it's much easier to find their way once they're inside the network. Now, should the organizations not protect the most critical assets? No, absolutely not. They should. But I think another aspect of cybersecurity, which is now getting more mature with time, is looking outside in, right? Getting a hacker's view. And organizations like ours, we like to do that for the clients. We like to give them a glimpse on how the hackers are looking at you. What are your vulnerable points as they look at it? They may not be your strongest assets, the most critical assets. They may be something you don't consider important or you're not even aware is exposed to the internet. But that is how the hackers would like to come in and cause a breach or break inside and do what they want to do. Now, that aspect is what you can even call it more like a hygiene, but with a different perspective. If we can do what we are currently doing and just do one more thing, that look at our organizations. For example, a lot of times employees, they like to sign up on third-party websites, right? It could be a simple PDF to Word converter, right? Or any other utility website. And then humans are creatures of habit. We have some habits of using our official email ID and reusing the password to sign up on those sites. The challenge is when they get breached and they actually, because of that breach, the user ID and password, because it was not appropriately protected by that utility website, is gone to the hackers. That is where the problem starts. And then we, as are unable to protect ourselves because the hackers have a legitimate user ID and password to log into your systems. Now, none of your firewalls, none of your IDS, IPS, even application firewall would protect if somebody walks in with the key, right? Like a legitimate user, they come in with credentials. This is where, like I said, we need to go and do proactive defense, wherein we need to go proactively look at ourselves from outside and look at what things are exposed to the internet, what the hackers can access about us, and see how we protect ourselves. Get ready, be prepared. So that is how I think is what we can look at going forward. But as you said, the breaches are currently increasing using all these methods, and even though we are getting more mature, we are unable to safeguard as of now.
Thank you. I really like the key term that you use, outside in approach, right? So yeah, that was quite informative for people who, like us, maybe, who use our passwords and user IDs often everywhere. So with that, I see, that the CISOs actually, these days face a lot of key challenges, right, among the corporates. If maybe if somebody is using giving their information outside the organization, this can be a challenge for a CISO. So how do you address that?
See, actually, the life of a CISO is not easy because they are always constrained with the limited resources, and they have to protect everything if possible, which is practically impossible. So they have an impossible ask at hand, and they have been given the resources. The bigger challenge is for any investment they make, they have to prove their rosy roti, which is return on security investment, rosy, and roti is return on technology investment, right? So ROSI, ROTI is something you need to always demonstrate, which is again very subjective and not possible, because it's very difficult to, for example, implement a solution and then tell the organization that this solution will protect 2 cyber attacks, which could have cost you this much of money, and hence there's a return on investment. All that is based on some kind of assumptions or subjective data, which to demonstrate is difficult. So in that kind of a scenario, for a CISO in today's world, like I said, it's a tough life. Of course, there are advantages, as we discussed earlier. The management understands the risks, because one thing that you really need as a CISO is the backing of the senior management. They really should think that cybersecurity is important, and then that's why you're here. There's no use working as a CISO in an organization who really don't believe in cybersecurity as an important area, because then you are in trouble. And there are organizations, they do it because of certain reasons, but then as a CISO you suffer at times. So that's it. I think one last point about the CISO life, which I've learned over the years, is the key to be a successful CISO is to have an ability to get the investments approved from the management, right? There have been a lot of CISOs I've worked with who've struggled at times because the management doesn't think what they want to do is important. And the only way I've seen that work is if you can explain the problem statement in a language that the management understands, which is usually the risk language, that this is the problem, which means this is the risk, these are the solutions, and give them hopefully, preferably more than one option, and let the management choose what is the right way of solving it. And then, of course, explain the residual risk for each of the options. If we can do that repeatedly every time in the same format, I'm telling you, all the managements I've worked with are very smart people. Right? They understand. They sometimes do not understand technology. They don't understand the tech words that we use. Or if we simplify and we make them understand the risk, you get your approvals mostly. So yeah, it's a difficult job. Given the chance, would I do it again? I don't know, maybe not. But my respect to all the CISOs across the world who are doing a fantabulous job.
Thank you so much, Mr. Singh. This was a very interesting answer. And I think you brought in a very eye-opening point about the ROI. Okay, so let me continue with this. So if we talk about SMEs, okay, what do you think would be the challenges that an SME can face, and how do we address it?
Right. Now, SMEs get even more interesting when it comes to cybersecurity, because SMEs are having lesser turnover, which means, and there are a lot of formulas that tell us the technology investment is a percentage of the overall turnover of a company, and then cybersecurity investment is usually a certain percentage of the technology investment. So if you go by that thing, SMEs, because their overall turnover is lesser, their focus on technology, or even for that matter, cybersecurity, is much lesser. Now, in that scenario, they want to keep the business running. They cannot afford to invest too much on cybersecurity. Unlike the large companies, they are unable to have large teams in cybersecurity. So you'll find a lot of SMEs, they'll have maybe a few people in IT department, technology, and then maybe one guy at max who would do some sort of IT security or some level of security for them. If of course they have clients that need to be responded to, we have somebody who does governance to answer all the questionnaires and audits that come across. Hence, SMEs are unable to typically, how do you say, take care of cybersecurity in the same manner or scale. For SMEs, the bigger challenge is the lack of resources, as I said, and what they can allocate for cybersecurity, the focus they could have on cybersecurity. They cannot afford the large teams. Typically, it's a percentage kind of investment you make in cyber. It's a percentage of your technology investment, which is for certainly a percentage of your turnover of a company, which in this case is much lesser. So typically you would have 1 or 2 people working in techno, a few people in technology, and hardly one guy in cybersecurity. But that doesn't mean the attackers don't like to attack SMEs. They're the favorite targets, and the repercussions could be huge because unlike the large companies, it's very difficult for the SMEs to absorb or take a hit and stay. A lot of SMEs fail once they are breached. They need to approach cybersecurity a little differently rather than the SMEs, also the large organization, the enterprises, which is where I think the shared team concept comes in. The virtual CISOs, the teams that can help not one but multiple SMEs to take care of cybersecurity on their behalf. A virtual CISO is nothing but the same trained guy who can actually work as a CISO for multiple clients and chop the hours in the week. That really helps them to get the right level of cybersecurity at a given cost. So, skills as a service, you can say. I think this is catching up. A lot of more and more these SMEs are getting aware. Though I think there's still a lot of work to be done in this area, and we hope that organizations across the world are able to get it. I mean, organizations like ours tend to provide very affordable solutions, platforms as well as people as a service to these organizations so that they can take care of cybersecurity at their end. And again, you cannot bring the risk to zero. It is only that you can mitigate to a certain acceptable level, which we try to do.
Thank you so much, sir. I think this was a useful answer for our audience who are in the SME sector. So with this, we move on to the last question of the webinar. So can you elaborate on what you mean by proactive cyber defense and how organizations can benefit from it?
Right. As I mentioned earlier, proactive cyber defense is actually you going out and looking at the organization and being proactive in the sense before the attackers find out your vulnerabilities, you get it done yourself and then fix them to make yourself a very hard target. Today, on the lighter side, we usually say there are 2 types of organizations, one that get breached, others do not know they are breached. So everyone would or could get breached. It's not impossible to breach an organization or hack an organization, get inside. However, when you are an SME or rather even a large enterprise for that matter, they cannot protect themselves 100%. They need to prioritize, right? And we were talking earlier that typically the approach is to look at your most critical assets. But since SMEs budgets are even lesser, what is more important is to look at the weakest links and fix them, right? Proactive cyber defense is nothing but to defend yourself in a manner that it makes it very hard for the attackers to look at you. Again, maybe a bad simile, but the kind of joke that comes to my mind is 2 friends are running and then there is tiger and they try to save their lives. The first friend asks the other one, do you think we can outrun the tiger? He says, no, I just need to outrun you, right? So essentially, as SMEs, I'm not saying that you need to outrun the other SMEs so they get hacked, but the idea is to defend yourself enough, make yourself a hard target. So once you know your weaknesses, you are able to protect or plug in your biggest gaps. Don't make yourself easy targets, right? Run hard enough so that the attackers, they don't find you attractive as a target. And then there are possibly others they look for. We as an organization, as a consulting service provider, do help SMEs in this regard. We help them see themselves through a hacker's lens, see what their key weaknesses are, which could be exploited by hackers, making them attractive, and then help them become less attractive to the hackers in that sense. And that's what we call the proactive cyber defense. So to be honest, for the listeners today, if through your medium, if they're interested, we are happy to do a similar assessment for them free of cost for the first 10 listeners who reach out to us at post@agrim.no, and we would be happy to do a similar assessment free of charge for them to help them see how they appear to the hackers as of today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Singh. It was a lovely discussion, and I'm sure it was, a lot of our audience would be, it will help a lot of our audience who watch the webinar. So thank you for your time once again, and you have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you so much for having me here. Take care. Thanks.